In today's episode, and yet another take on bosses. We need more phone lines. If you want shift workers, get shift workers. As a matter of fact, yes, temperature affects electronics. Who knew? Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. And yet another take on bosses. Here's another story about Fred, the boss, from my Another Take on Bosses post. A little background. The structure of our organization was roughly this. The national boss of our field service/tech support force was Harry, whose office was in a different building from us. Harry worked in our HQ office and had one support person, essentially a secretary. Under Harry was Fred and another manager based on the other side of US. Under Harry was me, a tech support specialist, a parts manager, and a bunch of techs spread out from Houston to Anchorage. I was very involved in day-to-day operations, following up with customers, making sure everyone was getting their paperwork handled, time sheets, expense reports, service reports, stuff like that. I had no responsibility for billing. If a new device got installed, I flagged it up to Harry's secretary, who made sure it got added to the correct customer's contract. Things were pretty swell. Fred and I had things pretty much on rails. Then came Surprise Monday. I showed up to the office as usual. Fred was always there early since he liked to beat the rush hour traffic. Fred calls me into his office right away and asks me to close the door. I was pretty sure I wasn't in trouble, but something was up. Fred, Harry was fired over the weekend. Sergey, international boss, flew in Saturday and let him go. Me, totally astounded. What happened? Fred, this shows me an invoice aging report he has on his desk. We spent some time going over it. We has a ton of customers who were way past 90 days on paying their monthly bills. A bunch more are at the 60-day mark. And it's not just our customers, the same thing is true for the customers on the East Coast. Turns out Harry was not passing any of this information on to Fred or the other manager. He didn't want them bothered with receivables, he would deal it. Only clearly he hadn't been handling it, and the axe finally fell. Fred had orders from Sergey, get this cleaned up right now. The aging report was the old green bar fan fold type. Fred opens it to where there are two halves, and tears it, hands me one half, and says, get on the phone with these folks. You know them all, it should be easy to get this cleared up. I'll handle the other half. The next couple of hours were some of the strangest in my career. I had customers say things like, I've been wondering when you guys were gonna call about this, to others saying I've told you folks a dozen times that you need to put PO number XYZ on your invoices, or we can't legally pay them. It was pretty embarrassing. Apparently Harry and his secretary had totally dropped the ball. It was kind of a miracle that we were collecting any billing. It was clear that a ton of invoices were going to have to be credited and reissued. A few had minor problems that a customer could initial changes on and submit to their accounting folks. Some charges had been incurred in a customer's previous fiscal year, and we had to write them off. It was pretty much a nightmare. Fred and I sat down at the end of the day and compared notes. We had to email our accounting folks a ton of revisions, credits, rebills. We looked like total idiots. Well, Harry did, but he was gone. Anyway, over the next couple of billing cycles we collected on a huge number of outstanding invoices, and after this we totally lived and died by the aging report. What was cool about this, really the only cool thing, was that Fred totally trusted me to jump into this crisis and help him out. Neither one of us had to deal with anything like this. It was a mess that I hadn't created, but I got to help clean it up, and it felt pretty good to be part of the solution. Fred and I worked more as peers to fix this. It was cool. After we had caught our breath, we started auditing what was being invoiced against what we knew was actually on the maintenance contract. No one will be surprised that we found a huge number of devices that had been installed but never added to the billing. So we had a whole other round of calling customers and warning them that their billing was going to increase in a big jump due to someone's incompetence. Embarrassing, but it sure made our numbers look better by year's end. We need more phone lines. What a roller coaster today has been. The place I work has about 400 employees, everyone has their own phone number. On top of this, about 60 folks are in a call center capacity taking calls that come in on a toll-free number. Because of all this, our system is configured for a capacity 46 local calls at a time, 23 dedicated to callers into our toll-free line, and another 23 lines for the rest of the business to share. Excess calls to the toll T1 will roll over to the second set of local lines, with room for another 23 long-distance calls and 23 international calls. We mostly support only local folks, but sometimes they move, and we need service to allow them toll-free access to our services. For those familiar with telephony, this is 4 T1s. Business has been picking up over the last year since the VID, and for the last 4 months pretty much we've been maxing out our capacity for locals calls. The number of people dialing into the call center is taking up the 23 lines the rest of our business uses. People would get busy signals calling us, we would get busy signals making outbound calls. Unless it was long distance, then we could make calls. Tickets started rolling in, my phone is broken. No, we only have so many phone lines, and they are all in use. Non-call center people share phones lines with call center people for local calls. Customers waiting takes up a phone line. You need to make calls early in day or late when usage is low. Rinse and repeat for 3 months. Tickets stopped coming in, but managers are finally complaining that their employees can't reach their customers. Customers are upset. They come to me. Yes, I work in IT, but I'm desktop support, I deal with endpoints. There are specializations in IT, **T gets complicated. Problem is, we aren't big enough for a dedicated telephony guy. The guy I took over for was also desktop support, but in his previous life he was a phone guy. He was a key player setting up our current system. He trained us on basic configuration and endpoint troubleshooting. We do what we can, then outsource the hard stuff to our support vendor. This is the first place where I've had access to the system. Since starting here I've received some additional training, and I spend off time learning up. After 2 years on the system, I can do day-to-day tasks, basic endpoint troubleshooting, configure new phones, trunks, routes, gateways. That being said, I'm really good with technology, and know enough about telephony to ask the right people the right questions to, and I'm always happy to engage our vendor for support when I can't find an answer. I get to work. Hey network engineer, can we add more T1s without upgrading hardware? Sure, go buddy, we have 2 open ports. Call software company, any additional software cost to increase capacity? Nope, go for it buddy. Call telecom company, we are at capacity, how much to add another T1? $500 a month, let us know when to go. I submit ticket to our software vendor to order the additional T1, and do the needed software config changes, cause I'm not touching it. Software vendor comes back and tell us they don't have contract with our telecom vendor, and we need to order directly through them. Once line is ran, they'll come configure switches and software. Call telecom to place our order, queue waiting. While waiting, we have managers asking us, are you sure it's a capacity issue? We remember having higher queues before and not getting busy signals. I show them real-time data that shows 100% usage. I tell my boss that based on everything, they are remembering wrong, misunderstood, or configuration has changed. Fact is, capacity right now is 46 for them based on current configuration. 2 weeks later, no word from telecom. We escalate, ask to be prioritized because we don't like our customer being upset with us. They get us a PM assigned to finalize some details. PM comes back and says we have 4 T1s, here's how they are currently configured, how would you like the new one configured? And oh, by the way, one of your T1s is throwing an error, is not currently in service. I look at the email confused, their description of our service setup doesn't match the description from the guy I took over for. At this point I call my network engineer, we review our hardware setup. We're supposed to have 5 T1s, a total capacity of 121 lines. 23 lines for the toll line, then 43 for local calls. We notice that no calls are coming in on the line that's supposed to dedicated to our toll line. We realize that when we switch toll providers, the lines weren't moved, they forwarded calls to one of the other line groups instead. Since the change, we lost 24 lines. I guess the call center folks were onto something when they said we used to have more capacity. He also says he confirmed the line reported as down isn't down according to the switch, so it's likely just not configured on the software. I'm able to confirm the line is indeed not included in either the local or long-distance route groups. When did this happen? Before my time is all I know. We've been without these lines for at least 3 years now. Now I call my telecom sales rep and we review what the PM send over. His notes don't match hers. He does research and finds we have a second account with 2 T1s on it, that connected on our side. He also reviews my bill for my toll-free number with me. He thinks he can beat their prices, and confirms that we are indeed no longer paying for a dedicated T1 for toll-free calls. I asked him how long that account has existed with the T1s, and he tells me over 20 years. Naturally, I'm curious why we have this account if we aren't using the lines. He thinks that we stopped using them when we upgraded our infrastructure 10 years ago to VoIP, and someone didn't cancel these old lines. Silver lining though, instead of ordering a new line, he can migrate these lines to our current configuration. We'll just need to re-add them to our switches and configure them in software, no waiting to roll a truck for a new run. I found a current bill for the T1s we didn't know about. The current rate for these is $2,700 a month, and we have used these lines in nearly 10 years. I also found out, we don't have any lines just for international calls. All international calls are just ran through our long-distance provider, so any of the lines can be used for that since they all are configured to support long distance. So, where's all this leave us? I have 24 lines already configured on the switch that just needs to be enabled in the software. We have another 46 lines already connected to the building, just needs to be connected to switch, configured on switch, and enabled in software. We don't need to set aside 24 lines to support international calling, any line can handle it. 10 years ago, someone forgot to cancel our account, we've been paying on out-of-service lines since. We don't need more phone lines, we need to use what we already have. Instead of spending an additional $6,000 a year, we're going to rebundle the account we forgot about, have more lines for our call center and other employees, and probably end up saving $12,000 a year compared to our current bill. Boss very happy. If you want shift workers, get shift workers. I was 19 and interviewing for an IT job in Guildford, Sydney, at the turn of the century. They got bought out by BP, the petrol company. If you're a local, you can guess that their name starts with Cass and ends with Troll. 4. Interviewer. Me, yours truly. Italics are non-vocal. The interview was going very well, and there was 4. Just one final question. Me, outwardly sporting a polite smile, inwardly cheering myself on how well the interview was going. 4. If there is a server outage at 7 p.m. at night, and you got a call, would you be willing to come back into the office to resolve it? Me, sure. You seem like such a nice employer, these things happen, I'd be happy to support you in good times and bad, it would be second nature for me to come in. 4. Excel. Me, actually, sorry, I'm not finished. I can only come in if I don't have uni that evening. I go part-time 2 nights a week, and I can't miss that. 4. Looks down, shuffles some papers with an evil smile. I'll give you another chance to answer that question. If there is a server outage at 7 p.m. at night, and you got a call, would you be willing to come back into the office to resolve it? Me, why is he asking again? Me, looking to the side and understanding. Oh. Uncomfortable pause. My future boss, it's still sporting that evil smirk. Me, out of sheer 19-year-old naivety than any other reason, I guess I would come back into work. 4. That's the correct answer. I missed uni the first time I got a call. The second time I got a call whilst in uni, I didn't pick the phone. Got the evil eye the next day from all my coworkers. Started calling all the IT job agencies that same day, received 2 offers within 2 weeks, literally offering me double pay. If you want shift workers, pay for them. Or at least, respect my boundaries. As a matter of fact, yes, temperature affects electronics. Who knew? Long-time reader, first-time posting. I do tech support for a mid-sized company with offices in 4 states. I'm the only IT in the southern region, the rest are up north. IT, me of course. You know how it goes. Some background: this user is an intern who just started a couple weeks ago. We tend to provide interns with the oldest laptops we have, not my idea, just tradition I guess. Hey IT, I just tried turning my laptop on and it made this horrible sound, then just turned off. Can you fix it? I hope I didn't totally break it. IT, well let's take a look at it. Will you set it on the bench and turn it on so I can hear the sound? I have a dozen other problems to deal with this morning, hoping it was a fluke and the laptop will just boot up normally. But as she said, it powers on, makes a horrible screeching sound for about half a second, then shuts off. I pick up the laptop, thinking I will need to pop it open to see if anything is out of place. The laptop feels like it's been in the fridge. Instantly, I know what the problem is. IT, did you leave the laptop in your car last night? Yes so? IT, it's too cold. Wait a little while then it will be fine. That doesn't explain why it won't turn on, or that noise. What do you really think is wrong with it? IT, already knowing what the problem is, I really don't know. I tell you what, I'll pop it open and take a look, then I'll bring it back to your desk when I've got it fixed. She agrees, then leaves my office. I continue what I was working on for about 10 minutes, then turn the laptop back on. It boots into the BIOS, but does not detect the HDD. Turn it off, and come back in another 10 minutes. It boots straight into Windows like normal. This laptop is from an age when spinning HDDs were still common, before NVMe really took off. This isn't the first time one of our users has caused issues by leaving the machine outside in the winter. Anyways, thanks for reading, and remember that user error is 80% of our problems in IT.